I've been thinking a lot about this concept that maybe I'll call having an anti-goal, which is essentially a place where you don't want to be, and therefore you work so hard to get out of that place. When it comes to trying to achieve your goals, there's always the pushing and the pulling factor. Like, are you being pulled by your goals? Meaning, is there a desired point you want to be and you are being pulled there? Or are you being pushed by your goals? Means there's a fire at your ass and you are being forced to move forward, A lot of people say that having a fire at your ass and being pushed by your goals is not sustainable. But I'd argue, or maybe I'd add on to that and say, maybe the best approach is to have a combination of both. Have a fire burning at your ass while also having something to work towards. I think it's a very sustainable and good motivation to be able to work towards something that you want. I mean, essentially when you work towards something, it's always towards your ideal lifestyle, right? But on the flip side, I think we don't give enough thought to the opposite of that, which is like the non-ideal, the hated lifestyle. What kind of life do we not want to live? What kind of person do we not want to be? So at the same time, while having the goal of being a person or having certain success, you also need to keep in mind the idea of I want to be this type of person and I want to achieve this type of things, and I do not want to be this kind of person and I do not want to be in this position that I was. Now, having an anti-goal is different from doing things to prove people wrong or to that will show them, like a vengeance kind of thing. Because at the end of the day, that is not sustainable because you are trying to prove an external. There's a factor of externality to that where you are trying to prove someone wrong. This is to show them, that will show them. But I'm trying to advocate for more of a internal thing. Show myself this is the way and this is not the way. It's even more beneficial to a navigator to not only know where you're going, but to know exactly where not to go. I think it was Charlie Munger who had this famous quote, tell me where I'm going to die so I don't go there. So that is essentially the idea of the anti-goal, a life that you do not want to live, where you do not want to go, on top of where you want to go and the life you want to live. So what does that mean for you? The way I try to apply it in my everyday life is that I do a lot of journaling, and one thing that I like to write down is, okay, where am I in relation to my goals and things like that. But something I've been doing more recently is, or something that I will be doing more, is to include what kind of life have I lived before, where have I been in the past, and I do not ever want to be in that position again. That will be the quote-unquote fire at my ass, and that having that visualized in mind is a really strong, I guess it's a motivator, but it's the opposite side of motivation, where not only holding the goal in mind, but holding the anti-goal in mind. Yeah. So if you really give some serious thought to that, visualize it, put yourself in the position of where you do not want to be. So I'll link a video by Tim Ferriss in the description or somewhere, or maybe at the side or something. But fear setting is something that you can do in parallel with goal setting, where you identify, analyze, and mitigate potential fears involved in coming to a decision or in any situation that you are faced with, rather than solely focusing on the goals and the outcome. So it forces you to face your worst case scenarios, and ultimately it will empower you to take action by reducing the perceived risk. So this is slightly different from goal setting, but it's along the same vein of like flipping the script, turning the script on itself, and instead of saying like it's instead of fantasizing about the outcome of your goal, it's thinking what's the worst that could happen. I think I started off with one topic about having anti-goals, but I kind of deviated from that to have this fear setting exercise. But it's along the same vein of like flipping the script on the traditional sense of goal setting and working towards a goal. So I think that's overlooked because I don't know why, but that's overlooked a lot. And having that being able to step out of the being able to step out of the narrative of goal setting and question things a little bit, I think that could be helpful for some of you out there who maybe find that your goals, like, it's not strong enough. And I think the last thing that I want to add is your goals and your anti-goals can change over time. Like, you don't have to be fixed or committed to just one goal, and that's okay. So don't get sucked into the whole narrative of like, oh, you need to be don't get sucked into the whole narrative of having to be committed and to don't get sucked into the whole narrative of having to commit to one thing and showing people that you are following through with that thing. That's a good trait to have, but sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to pivot, and not being bound by that decision, or not being bound by that goal that you set for yourself, or whatever you tell people, is a very freeing way to actively pursue the life you want and avoid the life that you do not want. So yeah, don't be afraid to change your goals, and don't be afraid to set your anti-goals, and really think what's the worst that could happen if you pursue your goals.